Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Yanks for another one of our Lost Caverns of Ixalan limited set review. Today, we're going to be rating every single black card from 1 to 5 based on how we think it will perform in the average limited deck. If you guys missed the introduction to Ixalan, make sure you check that one out. It's the most important. We go over the new and returning mechanics in the set, as well as all the draftable archetypes. You can also find white and blue. Those are already up too. All right, welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back as we look at the color black.
Woohoo! So let's go ahead and dive right in with the Abyssal Gore Stalker. 6 mana for a 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. So this is going to be really rewarding for those Orzhov decks that make a lot of little poopers and can make your opponents sacrifice a higher quality of creature. And I like this less. Usually we see a similar ability stapled onto like a 3-drop. So it's like if you sack itself, then you usually still got one up on them because it hit something better, like you did it as a one-off removal spell. This one, not so much. Not interested in 6 mana for that. And you're likely killing something weaker than a 6/6.
Yeah, this one, you see it on the 3-drop where each player sacrifices a creature, so they just doubled everything, and that just made it so much worse.
Well, it made it so much worse, except I believe in Orzhov, right? Like you're going to be left with a 6/6, and you're going to wipe their board in most of the situation. But I do feel like this is more specific to that deck than any of the other ones. Like you said, a 3/3, a 3/2 for 3 mana that does a creature, that can go in any black deck. This is going to want to go into your go wide tokens.
Yeah, I'd make sure to have more than 2 creatures out, other creatures, when you play this, so they can't kill something in response and make you also lose this.
Yeah, you can play around that a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it kind of just depends. And there's always a chance, maybe you're right. They are killing your 1/1 token with their premium removal spell. But if that's the case, then they could have just killed this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I think that this is playable, but in less situations than typical. So pretty split rating. It's going to be like a 1.5, and in exactly Orzhov, it's probably closer to a 2.5.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
All right, moving on to Oklazot's Deepest Betrayal. 5 mana for a 4/5 Bat God. Not gonna lie, kind of proud of myself for that one. I feel like that was decent.
I think you got that one right.
Flying Lifelinker, 4/4 for 5 mana. That seems good. Whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent that can't, you draw. Yes, please. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, create a bat with flying. Whenever this dies, return it to the battlefield transformed, and it turns into Temple of the Dead. Pay 1 and it turns into 1 tap for a black. Those are words. 3 mana tap, transform the temple. Activate only if a player has fewer cards in hand and only as a sorcery. Has 1 or fewer. I mean, these are just 5s. Like, this is just nuts.
Yeah, and plus when you get to play this, you get to go like na 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 bat god.
I didn't know where you were going with that until you did it, and then I was like, okay, like that's like medium good. You get half credit.
Woohoo!
But it wasn't like super obvious. So we're gonna say that is a 5.
Yeah, this card's amazing.
All right, Acolyte of Oklazot's. 3 mana for a 1/4. You can tap, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Each opponent loses a life. You gain a life. We see this a lot, but usually it's stapled onto like pay 1 mana to do a thing, and then you can like, do the last points of damage, 4 or 5 points of damage in 1 turn. I don't like that this is a tap.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't, it would have to cost mana.
It usually does. Like we've seen it on like Lampad something. Yep.
Yeah, from Original Theros.
And I feel like that's what I want is something that can blow up your entire board at the end to make it happen. This is like a slow thing where you end up like committing and then getting punished for it. So it is instant speed, so it's just like anti-removal. Like you're just like, okay, fine, I'll get a little value, and then like chip away at them. So I'm not saying it's not playable. I'm just saying I don't like it as much as I did the Lampat.
Oh, agreed. That card was definitely better.
This is a 2 for me.
I like this as a 2.
All right, another chance, 3 mana for an instant. You may mill 2 cards, then return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. I like that it's you may. You might not want to. This is a very mill-heavy format. You might be late game. And 3 mana, instant speed. Get the 2 best creatures out of your graveyard. I'm here for those cards. This is a 3.
Yeah, it's up to 2 creature cards. It doesn't target. So if there's ways to remove stuff out of your graveyard, that gives you a little bit of play there. Yeah, I like this as a 3. It's a nice 2 for 1.
All right, Bitter Triumph, 2 mana, instant speed. As an additional cost to cast this, pay 3 life or discard a card. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. This is an instant speed. 3 life is nothing. This is fantastic.
Yeah, the amount of times you pay 3 life is probably going to be like 90% of the time on this card.
Yeah. And like late game, I'll also just, sandbag like a land or whatever, and that's fine too.
Well, and I guess to be fair, discarding a card can trigger descend. Did
not descend, but descended. It does do descend, but not in the way that you
Yes. Yes.
Wait. This is the problem. It does not trigger descended, but it does trigger descend.
No, it does if it's a permanent for descended.
No, because a permanent has to
and go to the graveyard from anywhere.
Oh, I thought it was from the battlefield.
From anywhere.
Oh, I actually didn't know how that card worked. So it does work for all of the descendants.
Yes. And their descendants.
And the fathoms, whatever. Fathomless descent.
Yes.
Descent, descend, descended. It works for all of them. God, yes. This is the worst. And someone in chat was like, I don't know, it makes sense to me. I remember you. You're annoying. So is this damn word. Okay, this is great. This is a 4.
Yeah, this is premium removal.
Blood Letter of Ixalan. This is going to be very hard to cast. It is a vampire demon. 2/4 with flying. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice as much life instead. What?
I mean, that does make that tapping sacrifice a creature artifact feel a little better. Now they lose 2 each time.
This is also just like an evasive creature, so like it just hits for 4?
Yes, that too.
And I can't wait until they're like, oh, I'll race you. I'll hit you for 3 and I'll take 4 on the crackback. I can win this race. And you're just like, got him, swing, kill you for 12. Wow. This card is nuts. This is it's kind of easy to kill. It doesn't do a lot the turn that it comes in unless you're already massively ahead, and it's hard to cast. So I am going to say that this is a 4.
Yeah. I think it's a 4 simply because, if they just kill this right away, there's nothing.
There are 4s, Zippy D. Someone's asking. The God cycle in this so far have all been 4s in the first 3 colors. I'm sorry, 5s in the first couple of colors. In some sets, like the one where they reprinted like the Vorinclex, like the mom sets, those had multiple 5s in like each color, probably like 8 to 10 in the total set. Some sets are only having like 2 to 3 5s in the entire set. So it really just depends from set to set, but I feel like here we are getting quite a few, at least one probably in each color.
Yeah. Dream Trawler was like a 7.
Yeah. Yep. Dream Trawler pretty good. Also like the werewolf, the 4/4 extra nonsense. Yeah. Bloodthorn Flail, 1 mana. For an equipment, gets +2/+1. Equip, pay 3, or discard a card. It's cute if you have a lot of Descended, right?
Yes.
Like you could just do it.
Yeah, you want this as like an enabler, not just as an equipment.
Yeah, you're never playing this for the equipment side. You're playing this because you want artifacts. You're playing this because you want Descended. You're playing it because you want to get stuff into your graveyard. And then you get to put it on some creatures and beat them in the face with your bat that will now hit them for 8. So that's cool, but I think it's like a 2.
Yeah, 2 makes sense to me.
I wish I had a discount for like vampires like the one for the pirates did.
Or pirates, yeah.
Bringer of the Last Gift, 8 mana for a flying 6/6. When it enters a battlefield, if you cast it, each player sacrifices all other creatures they control. Then each player returns all creature cards from their graveyard that weren't put there this turn.
What? Put there this way.
Yeah, that's what I meant. This is interesting for those crazy self-mill decks, which black tends to be, right? Like mill yourself, do a thing. So there's plenty of ways that this is going to outpace your opponents in what this is trying to do. It's interesting.
Yeah, for modern players, this is living end on a card without the weird exile thing, but it functionally does the same thing. It's very expensive, though.
It is. I'm not scared to put an 8 mana cost card in my deck. In some formats. Obviously, like in Mom, that stuff won't fly. This flies. But like, it's... I don't know. It's really expensive. That said, if I'm in black, I'm probably not cutting it.
Yeah, the problem is, right, usually if you're going to get this, like, yeah, the 6/6 flyer probably wins the game, but the effect can actually hurt you. Like,
yeah,
they might just have more things in their graveyard.
They might, but I feel like a lot of what black is trying to do is get stuff in your graveyard, right? Like, it enables you to discard cards. When it comes into play, it mills too. I feel like the average black deck is just going to do this better.
It's going to do the milling part better, but the average black deck is also going to be killing their things better, which is putting them in the graveyard as well.
But if you have more creatures on the battlefield because they didn't kill your creatures, then you just don't cast this and you win them. You win anyway.
Yeah, it's just a weird one that's like, I don't like my giant threat to be something I can't play sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like the only time you won't want to is when you're already winning.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Or if you're if you're drastically losing, then this is also just a huge body. And if they are slightly ahead, like in graveyard, chances are you're not far behind and you have a 6/6 flyer. So I think this is making the cut. It's expensive, so I'm not going to give it a ton of credit. But if you land this thing, it's going to win the game. But you got to play it. So there's some number of games you can't. I think this is, I'm going to average it out to like a 3/5.
Yeah, I think I'm a little lower. I think I've got it as a 3 just because of how expensive it is.
I think it does enough when it lands that it, like, the landing of it is going to be a 5 a good chunk of the time. So can you land it though? Brood Rage, Mycoid? McCoid?
I would say Mycoid, but I'm not sure.
Mycoid? Sure. Brood Rage Mycoid. It's a fungus.
Mycoid.
Someone in chat is probably a nerd and knows what that is. 4/3 at the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, create a 1/1 black fungus creature token. It poops out more fungi. It makes a little fun guy.
Yeah. Like this card. Black is, like we just talked about, going to be trying to put things in the yard, so it will be descending often.
Someone said it's a mycoid. It has to do with mushrooms or funguses. That I did know that it was a word for mushrooms and funguses, but I didn't know what that word was. And this card's great. I think this card's like this is a solid 3. I mean, I'm happy to put this in my 4-drop slot. Now someone else is saying mycoid. All right, chat, get it together. Do you agree? Is it a 3?
I like it as a 3.
All right, moving on. Let's have you do this one.
Next up, we have Canonized in Blood, 1 and a black enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. You can also pay 5 black, and sacrifice this to create a 4/3 white and black vampire demon token with flying.
I think this is a solid card for most decks. Like it'll be borderline playable too, because you're going to get counters, right? Like things are going to die, things are going to go into the graveyard.
Yes.
And you probably only need to get 3 counters before you're like, okay, this is a card. And then the late game, you're like, okay, I no longer need this. I'm going to, turn it all sideways and make a game-ending evasive creature. That seems good to me. I think this is like a solid 3. Might be a little high, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 2.5, but it's fine. I'm not going to cut it.
It depends how quick the games are. I feel like this is
True.
shaping up to be a longer format, so I'm kind of edging on the higher side for that. I feel
That's
like
fair.
you're going to get to the 7.
Yeah, I can see that.
Chupacabra Echo. We have a 4-mana 3/2 Beast Horror Spirit. Fathomless Descent. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X, where X is the number of permanents in your graveyard. I hate that you probably can't cast this on 4.
Yeah, I like the callback to Ravenous Chupacabra, right? A 4-mana creature that kills something. But you're right. If you're casting this on 4, you're probably only killing something tiny, which you're not thrilled about.
Yeah. Compared to Chupacabra, this is a terrible letdown.
Yeah. Being said, I'm still probably never cutting this card.
Agreed, but it is a letdown. And the set is made to put stuff into the graveyard, so it's probably fine, but it is very late. If I'm on the draw and they put like a 4-mana 4/4 down and I have this in my hand, I'm just going to be like, no. And then I'm going to cry. I feel like if they're going to make it this much worse than Chupacabra, it should also have flash. That might be too strong, but like at least then you can use it as like a combat trick. I don't know. This is fine. I agree. I'm not cutting it. It's like a 4, but Chupacabra was like, or this is a 3, but Chupacabra was like a 4.
Yeah. This is a 3.
I miss my good boy. Corpses of the Lost, 3 mana for an enchantment. Skeletons you control get +1 and have +1/+0 and have haste. When Corpses of the Lost enter the battlefield, create a skeleton at the beginning of your end step. If you descended, you may pay 1 life. If you do, return Corpses of the Lost to its owner's hand. So you can pay 1 life to make more 3/2s.
Yes. With
this
haste.
Seems good.
Yeah. We haven't seen really anything else with skeletons, but doesn't really need anything else since it can keep making more.
Yeah. You have to have some life. Like, this is kind of feels bad in the late game.
Yeah, but that's pretty common for black token makers, right? Like a Bitter Blossom type effect.
Yeah.
That it costs you life.
I think that's okay. You got to pay the mana over and over again, but it is a decent card. It's not game ending for a rare. And do you remember like the red one that I thought was really busted in All Will Be One? That made
I've blocked all memories of that set from my mind.
So each turn it made like a 1/1, and then a 2/1, and then a 3/1, and then a 4/1.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Away. Like those are busted. This is not that.
No, definitely not.
Still good. This is probably a 3. I'm not cutting it.
Yeah, I like it as a 3.
Deadweight. This is a good reprint. -2/-2 for 1 mana. Yeah, this is a 3/5.
I like this reprint particularly, right? Because you could just reprint like Disfigure, your -2/-2, but this is a permanent for Descended.
Yeah, because it'll go into the graveyard, and not only Descended
and Descent
and Fathomless Descent. Yeah. This is good. So that actually makes it even better. Honestly, does that bring it up to premium removal? Do we give it that 4 because we enable everything?
I think I still have it as a 3/5.
All right, Death Cap Marionette. 2 mana for a 1/1 with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, you may mill 2 cards, enabling all your stuff. Whether you want to do that, I don't know. 2 mana for a 1/1 Death Touch is a little pricey for me. So if I'm not looking to mill myself, this might not make the cut, but I will say it is creepy.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with the 2 mana 1/1 Death Touch. I mean,
We saw a good value return 2 creatures as well, so even if you're not trying to do that, chances are you'll be able to bring some of it back or do something.
Yeah, and I just like my my sort of defensive controlling black decks just want something like this on the ground anyway.
Yeah, certainly playable, but I think it's like a 2 with some upside.
Yeah, yeah.
Deep Goblin Skull Taker. 3 mana for a 2/2 with Menace. The beginning of your end step, if you descended, put a +1/+1 counter. And Descended is getting a lot more support here than we saw for Explore.
Yes, that is definitely true.
Everything in this color wants to help you Descended, which is also helping you descend.
And that's, I guess, makes sense when you looked at like the way they've described the archetypes. 3 of the black archetypes literally have the word descend in the archetype name. Descend control, descending beatdown, descend grindy. Whereas only 1 explorer in blue-green.
But none of those words say descended, so clearly this is not a good mechanic.
True.
This is not supported at all. No, I think this is very good. It will be super easy to get 1 trigger on this, and then you're already happy for a 3/3 Menacer, and then the rest is just icing, and it gets very good. So I think that this is a solid 3 for me.
I like it as a 3 as well.
Even if your deck doesn't do it well, it's worth playing. Yeah. Deep Cavern Bat, 2 mana for a 1/1 flying lifelinker. When it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it until this leaves the battlefield. They have to waste premium removal on your little annoying idiot. And if they don't have it, then you win the game.
Yeah, these cards are always pretty good, dating back to Brain Maggot and Mesmeric Fiend and blanking on the white-black artifact one, but these cards are always annoying to play against.
This is a 1/1 evasive creature with lifelink that gives you card advantage. This is great.
Oh, great. The card's very good.
I love this card. I think that this is... I think this is a 3.5. I'm going to give the card, like, knowledge, and the chances are it removes the removal from their hand in the first place. I'm very, very on board for this bat. I'm batty for it.
I think I like it at 3/5, yeah.
Woo! Defossilize. 5 mana for a sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature explores, then it explores again. Ooh. Hello. Normally, we see the same rate for the return a creature to the battlefield, but you don't get to double explore. Like, that's some power creep.
Yep, this we'll have the advantage also of, in this set, you'll be more likely to have bigger things in the graveyard earlier because you can mill them.
And like dinosaurs.
Yes.
Like this set is just taller than the last, like,
5. Yeah, but just the fact that, a lot of times you have to spend 5 mana to get back like a 3-drop because that's the only thing that's made it into your graveyard. But that's less likely to happen here.
And also a lot of times, like, the biggest things in the format outside of like 1 is like a 4/4. So I think we'll get some really good value with this. I think this is very playable. And card advantage. I like it. This card's good. That said, you don't want them a lot. You have to wait for it. It's kind of a dead card for a long time. It's like a 2.5, maybe a 3.
Yeah, I like it as a 3. But again, you're probably only running 1.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably a 3 for the 1. The Explorer is going to be so good.
Yeah.
Echo of Dusk, 2 mana for a 2/2 with Descend 4. As long as you have 4 more permanents, this gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. I love that. It's a bear that turns into a 3/3 with lifelink. Heck yeah. That is a 2.5.
Yeah. It's not an amazing ability, but it's free on the bear, so why not?
Fanatical Offering, 2 mana for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. draw 2 cards, and create a map token. It replaces a map token if you can manage to sack a map token for it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you've generated one, now you're getting a card for free.
Yeah.
It's instant speed, so it's, removal protection.
And it's an instant. Yeah, I do like that. I didn't even notice at first. This is really bad if you don't have anything to sack, though.
Oh,
like
yeah.
If you end up having to sack like a 3-drop, oof.
Yeah, these cards always feel like they end up getting cut. But, also, do we have like a, act of treason, threaten type card? It's always nice with those to be able to sacrifice their things.
Yeah, this is only 2 mana, so that's possible. I think this is an interesting card. Usually the black card draw is pretty universal in all decks. This one, I really want to see a lot of 1/1s, map generation, tokens, treasures, something. And if I don't have those, and if there's a good chance that I have to sacrifice a 2 or 3, 4-drop creature, I don't think I'm interested in this.
Yeah, me neither, although I'm okay running this as one of my last cards just because it does help against removal.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's, very Deadly Dispute-esque, right? If you can see yourself putting a Deadly Dispute, and there was like a lot of saprolings in that set, right? Like,
it's a Deadly Dispute AFR where you were just stealing things all day long.
That was the reprint of it. The first time we saw it, I think it was with saprolings, or it was with some little idiot.
It was just it's definitely been printed a couple times, so I just don't remember where it was originally.
Irrelevant. If I have little idiots, I'm happy to play this. And it's
it was originally AFR.
Okay. What were the little idiots I was thinking of? Maybe I'm thinking creatures? Like my opponent's creatures. Yeah, AFR was gross with that one for sure.
Yeah.
But either way, this is a fine card. It's a 2, and it'll play way up in the right archetype where you have easy access to sack targets.
Agreed.
All right. Fungal Fortitude plus 1 or 2 mana for a flash enchantment +2/+0. When an enchant creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and under its owner's control. I like that it lets your little stuff trade up and then brings those things up. And you can just use it as like an aggressive tool, right? You just put in a bunch of damage, make your opponent answer it, and then it comes back most likely. That's fine too. This is a borderline playable, easy to cut. I think this is a 2.
Yeah, again, kind of like Deadweight, right? This is something that we often see on an instant, but because it's a permanent here, all right, it might be a little better because of all the descend stuff.
Honestly, it just kind of feels like a combat trick too. It's just +2/+2 essentially for your dude, +2/+0 because your dude comes back.
Yeah.
All right. Gargantuan Leech, 8 mana for a 5/5. A lot of 8 mana spells here. This costs 1 less to cast for each cave you control, and each cave card in your graveyard is a 5/5 with lifelink. So let's say it's not terribly hard to pick up 2 caves. I don't know.
6 mana, 5/5 lifelink, still not great.
We are seeing 1 cave card in every color, which leads me to believe it is not as good as Gates. Unless the Gates colors are like green, red. It's looking like it is less supported than Gates or Domain.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not high on this card at all.
So rating wise, I still think that it is maybe part of some grand deck that could exist, but so far I'm not seeing it. So I'm just going to say this is like a 1.5.
Yeah, I like it at 1.5 too. 1.5 as well.
All right, Grasping Shadows, 4 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains Death Touch and lifelink until end of turn. That seems really good. Put a dread counter on it. If there are 3 or more dread counters on it, transform it into taps for a black, remove a dread counter from the lair, you draw a card, and you lose a life. And it transforms with 3 dread counters on it. So it allows you to pay to draw 3, lose 3, but does not transform back. I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's still just a swamp. And it's a cave.
That's true. These are caves. I didn't really notice that. So it lets you attack 3 times with lifelink and death touch, which is going to be really good and really annoying for your opponent. And then it lets you draw 3 cards over 3 turns and is a cave. That's the, total of what this is doing. I think that's really good. It's a little on the pricey side, but that's some good long-term value. If the format is slow enough for you to take advantage of it, I think it's a 3.
Yeah, especially because nominally already costs you a couple life to draw the cards, but you've just given 3 things lifelink.
Yeah.
So you've probably gained at least 3.
Yeah, and you've made blocking for them really weird. Double blocks are not possible. You've traded up on your little idiots. I think that's very reasonable.
Yeah, I like it as like a 3.
Greedy Freebooter, a 1 mana 1/1. When it dies, scry 1 and create a treasure token. This is the first treasure token we've seen in the set, which is sad for pirates. This is not doing enough for me.
No, just that it's a cheap enabler, I guess, as something small that can go to the graveyard. Probably decent in your Orzhov sacrifice deck.
Yeah, I think it's there and nowhere else, really.
Yeah, probably. I mean, maybe if you have some sort of like Pirates as blue-red, but some sort of Grixis Pirates deck, maybe.
Okay.
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen enough support for that yet.
I'm going to say this is a 1.5 in the average deck.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Join the Dead, 3 mana, instant speed, -5/-5. And descend 4. That creature gets -10/-10 instead if there are 4 or more permanents. -5/-5 most of the time will do the job unless they have a real big dinosaur, which then it's late game and you probably have descend 4 anyway. So I'm cool with this card. This seems like a solid 5 to me, or 4.
Yeah, kill almost everything to kill actual everything.
Mm-hmm.
In the set. Yeah, it's a 4. It's just premium.
Malicious Eclipse, 3 mana for a sorcery. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. If a creature an opponent control would die, exile it instead. Feels like a sideboard card, but I don't know. Sometimes you are a little short on playables. Your creatures are a little tall.
Yeah, the exile clause is nice because of Descend, right? It stops your opponents from doing it, keeps the stuff out of their graveyard, keeps stuff out of there to be able to be crafted later.
I'm going to say it's a 1.5, and we want to keep this in the sideboard for me.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right. Maltic Drought. 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card and lose a life. So I'm confused. Usually in sets where we see this, it's because there's a sack option in most sets. But crafting doesn't sack, it exiles, right?
Yep.
So I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it still replaces itself as a craft when it enters the battlefield. So you're not losing out on a card if you craft it. You don't get the benefit of like the full Ichor Wellspring experience.
Yeah, but then
a sacrifice.
But then we're just cycling. There's no cheat. Normally it's a cycle with a cheat. Where's my cheat?
I mean, you can Fanatical Offering this and draw 3 cards.
No. This is a 1. I mean, I guess the cheat is that you get to draw a card and then it is fodder for the thing.
Yeah.
It is because it replaces itself. It is a free thing to craft with, but it's okay, fine, maybe a little, but still, I don't like it. It's a 1.5 in the average deck.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, it's not great.
All right, next up we have a 3 mana 2/4 Vampire Cleric with Death Touch. When it attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, create a vampire creature token with lifelink. When it attacks while you have the most life or are tied for the most life, you draw a card and lose a life. I am fine with both of those things. Yes.
I mean, I'm just now it's my goal to make sure that we're always tied, so I get both.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even see that. That's cool. But also, casting this on 3, if you're on the play, chances are you have a clean attack at least once. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 2/4 Death Touch is a pain to block.
Yep. This card's very good.
Yeah, and it's nice also, like, the vampire you're creating doesn't, like, come into play attacking, so it's not just suiciding.
Yeah. I think this is really cool. I think that this gives you that long-term advantage. I think the Death Touch really gives it that little chef's kiss that makes it tough to deal with. 4 booty is going to make it, like, not die to a good chunk of removal. This is probably a 4 for me, especially in Orzhov.
Yeah, I like it as a 4. It just does a lot of little things.
Okay, we have a 5 mana 5/2. When it dies, discover 3. Now, no thank you. That's too much mana to trade for a 2/2 and then to get, like, my 1-drop. No.
Yeah.
No thanks.
I mean, it's a pretty decent blocker. But for 5 mana, I would at least like to be able to trade for a 3/3, so
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Queen's Bay Paladin, 5 mana for a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, return up to 1 target vampire card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. You lose life equal to its mana value. This is cool. It feels more constructed-y, just because there's only going to be, like, vampires in one color, really. But I think it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick check to see if this, because last time we were at Ixalan, white had a lot of vampires. I don't remember seeing them.
They were not there, if I remember correctly.
I am quickly scanning through white, and I have so far found 1 vampire. There are 3 white vampires.
Not enough.
Yeah, and then plus whatever's in black. So I mean, you might end up with, they're all, you end up with a handful of them, and not to mention you're just getting it on top of a 5/4. So,
but that's in white specifically, right? Like the average.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Yeah,
and we have seen some here, so I'm not saying it's not playable, but it's probably just like a 3.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable to me.
Oh, this dinosaur is so cute. 6 mana for a 5/6 Dino. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible to end of turn, and it has swamp cycling. I think all these swamp cyclings are really good. I'm going to call this a 3 because I like all the swamp cyclings.
Yeah, I mean, getting kind of a free attack potentially out of something smaller for a turn is nice, and just you're right. The versatility that comes with the all the land cyclers definitely makes it really hard to ever cut them.
And a 5/6 is a solid body. I think that this is going to play well for a top end when you don't open like a rare, right? This is an okay 6-drop.
Agreed. Yep.
So let's move on to Ray of Ruin, 5 mana. Exile target creature, vehicle, or non-basic land. Scry 1. Built-in scry, sorcery speed, that's okay. I think this is a 3.5 removal.
Just a bizarre set of things this hits. Like creature, vehicle, or non-basic land is bizarrely specific.
The non-basic land was weird, but the creature or vehicle, like, I do find a lot of removal and a lot of things do change based on whatever the set we're in, and we have seen a few vehicles.
Yeah. So. It's a weird combination.
Agreed.
But still, basically you're talking 5 mana exile a creature. Scry 1, which is fine.
The reason I think it says vehicle is because it kind of has to at sorcery speed. Like, it wants, because there are vehicles here, it wants you to be able to remove those. It just doesn't want you to be able to kill creatures at instant speed. So it's a way of punishing you without like making you die to a mechanic, basically.
Yeah.
Screaming Phantom 3.
Did we give that a grade?
I gave it a 3.5.
Okay. Yep. That works for me too.
Screaming Phantom 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer. When it attacks, mill a card. Doesn't say may. Don't like that.
Yep.
But, you know, black does want more graveyard stuff, so it's probably still okay. But I don't like that it's not a may. So I'm going to give this... I'm going to give this a 2.
Yeah, I think I'm at 2.5. Just Windrake plus.
Yeah, most likely you're going to want to mill some, so it's probably more, but I'm still scary.
Yeah.
Skull Cap Snail. This, it's using it as a shell.
Yep.
2 mana for a fungus snail. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. Oh, it's like the little elf or the little rat or whatever. Yep. And it exiles, so he doesn't even let them do the fathom did.
They can't craft with it. Yeah.
Great. I like this little guy. These always play really well to me.
Yep.
So I think these are 3s for me.
Yeah. I like that as a 3.
Soul Coil Viper, 3 mana for a 2/3 snake. You can pay 1, tap, sack it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a Fanatical counter on it. Any creature?
Yeah.
No restrictions?
I like this card for that ability on a reasonable body.
It's already playable. Why is it any creature? It could just return a 10-drop? No problems? No questions asked? I mean, it should be a 3 mana 1/1 if you're going to do that. You can't put that on a good creature that's already fine to play. That's rude.
Yeah, the card's really good.
Like, the creature really has, like, no downside.
No, I mean, you're paying a little more than you'd want. You're getting a little less than you'd want for a 3-drop in terms of stats.
Well, once upon a time, like 2 years ago when we started doing this, a vanilla 2/3 for 3 was something we played on the like somewhat regular filler basis. That was a 2. It has prepped a little bit.
That was before every card had 4 paragraphs of text on it, and vanillas don't exist. Vanillas don't exist anymore.
I agree, but I think that this text is better than what we've been getting added.
Oh yeah, it's very good.
So this seems very good. So I think this is like a 3.5.
Probably a little lower on it. I think it's a 3, but it's very good.
Because it's like curve filling, and late you could just cast it, and then next turn you just sack, get the best thing back. So it's like a redraw of like the best thing in your graveyard in the late game. It scales so well. So I'm happy to give it a bump. Souls of the Lost. 2 mana for a star +1. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. And it has Fathomless Descent. Its power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to +1. I like that they added the +1 because it doesn't die if you just cast it on 2 and sit on it for a little while. It scales really well. This is a super powerful 2-drop. It's very efficient. I like 2-drops that scale well, so this is good to me. I'm going to call this a 3.5.
Yeah, and you can sacrifice your Mephitic Drought and get the extra card draw, so you can cheat with it.
It does say permanent. There's the cheat right there. You found it. Do you agree with 3.5?
I like it as a 3.5.
All right. Stalactite Stalker. 1 mana for a 1/1 with Menace. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it, you can pay 3, sack it. Target creature gets -X till end of turn, where X is Stalker's power. This card's great.
Yeah, it takes a few turns before it gets to being a real removal spell, but you can do this at any speed, so it's always a combat trick being threatened on board.
Yeah. It's a combat trick, but also you just play this on one. It's got menace. You get in like 3 or 4 points of chip damage. Then you like you block with something else, or you attack with something else that trades. It gets bigger. So it's also just like a threat by itself over time, right? It continues to build and grow and get scary, and then just threat of activation. So that's very cool. It's not a sorcery speed activation. That's nice. This feels strong. This is a 4.
I'm a little lower at 3.5 just because for a rare at 4, it's a useless top deck late in the game because of how long it's going to take to do anything.
Yeah, that's true. It is a useless top deck. It just seems so versatile to me.
Yeah, but it is very good.
It's very efficient for a 1.
Yes.
So you're a 3.5?
Yep.
So we're close. Starving Revenant, 4 mana for a 4/4. When it ETBs, Surveil 2. For each card you put on top of your library, you draw a card and lose 3 life. It also has Descend 8. Whenever you draw a card, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. That's cool. So you can just put them all in your graveyard and fuel all the other cards that are very good in your deck that want that. Great. You can lose a life to get your best card. Cool. And later in the game, it says whenever you draw. It does not say your second card or anything like that. So every upkeep is just like a drain. This card is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, what's like the worst case in this? You got a 4 mana 4/4 that lets you bin 2 cards you didn't want.
Yep. And fuel your other stuff.
Yeah, that's like the absolute worst case of this card.
So because it has an effect that triggers all of like the really relevant, it even actually triggers all of the relevant new mechanics, because even craft you can get out of the graveyard as well. I'm going to say that this is a 4.5 because there is an effect there that even if they remove it instantly, you still get that value.
Yeah, you've either gotten to fuel your other mechanics or drawn some cards at the cost of some life, but like immediately, even if they kill it right away. So yeah, this is a 4.5.
I like too that the way that it is worded, you surveil first and then you draw. So that way you could be binning the top card, or you could, put one on top and you could be binning the 8th card for Descend, and you actually get to essentially lose 2, drain 1, or like lose 2, hit for 1. That's cool. So 4.5. Stinging Gravecaller, 3 mana for a 1/3 with Death Touch, Descend 4. Whenever this attacks, if there are 4 or more cards in your graveyard, you draw a card, lose a life. Wow, there's a lot of that in this set. This seems cool. I'm into this card. This is a solid Death Touch on a 3 booty. I'm into that. This is I want to give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I think I've got it low. I think I've got it as a 3.
I'm really into this. It blocks insanely well. It just bricks, we saw a lot of like 2/4s, 2/5, 1/3s, 2/2s, just bricks so much. And then in that mid game, it's going to trade up massively on mana because they have to block it with at least 3 power and draw you a card. I'm here for that.
Yeah, I mean, it could easily trade with at equal mana.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're doing it late enough that you're drawing a card, then you're still, +1.
I'm here for it. I think it does everything I want it to do. You're at a 3?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to Synapse Necromage. 3 mana for a fungus wizard. When it dies, create 2 1/1 black fungus creature tokens. With this, creature can't block. Okay. It's a little expensive for a 3/1, but it leaves behind 2 bodies. Trades pretty well. This is going to be great in Orzhov because you really want those bodies to sacrifice. Yes. So I think that this is solid. I'm interested in this. This is a 2.5 for me.
Yeah, I think I like it at 2.5 as long as you've got enough things that care about sacrificing.
Agreed. All right. Terrain's Journal, 2 mana for a legendary artifact. You can tap, sack another artifact or creature, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery. You can also discard your hand and transform the journal, and it'll flip into the Tomb of Aklazats. It can tap for a black, it's a cave, and you can tap, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it and is a vampire in addition to its other types. I think that is fantastic. There's no rule that says you have to have cards in your hand when you discard.
Nope.
You just play this. You get to sacrifice the one thing that we couldn't sacrifice to draw an extra card. Great. There's the cheat, and then you just wait until you're hellbent, and then you start casting cards out of your graveyard.
Yeah, this is a great late game card.
It does say you transform, so it stays tapped, so you can't do it the turn that it comes in, but that's okay. This is insane value. Then you get every turn you get free cards.
And you can do it at instant speed, so you can do it at the end of their turn.
Yeah. It's also not on a creature, so it's hard for your opponents to remove. So I'm not going to give this the downside of, them having an answer to it right away, because it's just not as likely. You're going to get good value out of this should you get to transform it, I think.
Yes.
That black removal spell that destroys non-basic land. It's for these things and for the gods. Yeah. The gods are not indestructible on their land form.
Well, that one exiled anyway.
Okay, but that removal spell just got a lot bigger. In my head, I wasn't even thinking about these flip sides.
I mean, most of these are rares, though, or mythics.
Yeah, but there's a mythic cycle. There's multiple rares in each color. So there's at least 15 of these. That is not going to be uncommon to find.
Yeah, I mean, there's only, I guess there's 3 in black.
So that's even more.
But one's a mythic, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. There's going to be 15 total cards in the set. Chances are you're going to come across them in your draft.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty unhappy if I'm spending my 5-mana removal spell on a land. I've already probably lost at that point.
But it's a rare. If the land is their rare, that's letting them draw out of their graveyard. That's not a bad thing.
No, that's true.
I would agree with you if it was a normal land, but this is not. This is their rare slot. So that, I'm into that. I wasn't even thinking about all of these stupid lands. Wow, I don't even know why.
I just figured they're rares. I don't care. I'm not basing a removal spell grade on rares.
Oh, I 100% am, especially in big cycles like this. Anyway, so this is a good card. I think this is a 4.5. It's a little slow, but I think it's very strong and it will win the game.
Yeah, I'm a little lower. I think I've got it as a 4, but it's very good.
4 mana for a sorcery, Fathomless Descent. All creatures get -X to end a turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So it's a board clear. That's real situational. You got to have the build around for it. I hate that.
Yeah, I mean there are times where that's a benefit, right? If you've got big things, against the deck full of small things.
I don't know. If I'm in black, it's not very likely I'm in the dinosaur deck, so I feel like I'm just bricked against one archetype.
I'm thinking more just if I'm playing against aggro full of X1s and X2s, and I've got some X4s,
Yeah, I was just pointing out that goes both ways. Chances are that the dinos are bigger than you, and you have to have a lot of cards to do anything to them.
True.
So, it's like a split card. If you can't mill and you can't discard, and your deck isn't built to recover from losing value into your graveyard, that this is no good. And then it's probably fine.
Yeah. It's weird because it feels more like a split card for what I'm playing against, because I feel like almost every black deck is going to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, obviously what you're playing against, situational.
I think this will be very good against Orzhov and Boros. And very bad against everything else. Unless my deck is really built super well to this archetype.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm going to say that this is, I'm just going to put it smack dab in the middle because I don't know what to do with it. And we're going to call it a 2.5.
Yeah, that's where I like it as well.
Tithing Blade, 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. For 2 mana, sign me up. You can also craft with a creature. A little weird. 5 mana at the beginning of your upkeep. Each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Yes, I'm on board. I feel like the removal spell's good, and then you only craft when you have a craftable creature that sucks.
That's interesting. I'm the other way. I think the removal spell is terrible.
For 2 mana? Like, I mean,
edicts are just not good in limited.
I think they're fine in limited. I agree they're not good, but like, I do play them.
I try very hard not to.
Yeah, there's definitely better removal, and if I've got good removal, I'm not running it. It's not like I'm cutting premium stuff for this, right? It's when you are light on removal, which I would say probably a third of my like black decks. I'm like, ooh, I wish I had a little extra removal, and I play stuff like this.
Which is almost kind of weird, right? Because the fact that you don't have a lot of removal makes the edict worse, because they probably have a little thing running around to sacrifice.
It depends. I'm not usually using premium removal on little things anyway. So this is just 2 mana. It's killing their 2-drop or their 3-drop. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think ideally I'm not playing this card unless I'm trying to craft other things using it.
I think it's going to see play in probably, I would say probably half my decks as the 23rd playable when I don't have good removal, don't have access to good stuff. So I'm going to give it a 2.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm fine with that as like a last playable.
You kept saying it's not good. I agree. It's not good. It's just playable. You just got to play these. That's all. And the backside I'm okay with too. Eventually you're going to have a Saproling or an Idiot, and I'm like willing to trade that for a Drain every turn and put a clock on them. Would you sack a Saproling for the backside of this? That's the real question.
Maybe, but I don't think I'd pay 5 mana for the back of this.
Yeah, I think it's super late, right? You're just playing this on 2, kill their 2 and 3-drop, and then you just sit there until you have excess mana to dump.
Yeah, this is like to me, this is like 2 parts, 2 bad cards that together kind of make a maybe okay card.
I think the front side is where most of the meat is at. I'm okay with the backside, but if I don't ever get there, if I don't have like nothing to do for a turn, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Moving on to Visage of Dread, 2 mana for another artifact with a lot of words. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or creature card from it. That player discards that card. And you can craft with 2 creatures, 6 mana, and it becomes a 5/4 menace. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill 2 cards. No. No.
I don't love this. You don't want it?
No.
Yeah, I don't particularly either.
I'm not usually running the front ability. I'm not sacking 2 creatures for a card that force mills me. That's not even that impressive to begin with.
Well, it's May mill. It's not force mill.
I guess I actively thought it was forced mill.
I don't want to sacrifice either, but I'm okay with exiling 2 out of the graveyard for it.
Oh, I keep forgetting that you could do graveyard.
Yeah.
It depends. Black really wants some fathomless descent stuff. I don't know. That might actually hurt you a lot too. It depends on the rest of the deck.
It might. Yeah, I don't love the card, but I don't. I mean, I would put this at the exact same spot as the last card.
In my head, you had to sacrifice 2 creatures that were on the battlefield. Oh, yeah. And I was
that would be completely unplayable.
That said, sacking from the graveyard later in the game is okay. You get a 1/1 on the face, and then you turn it into a thing. If you can spare the creatures, some builds, I think that this is a 2.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 as well.
It might be a little bit better if you don't care about the things in your graveyard at all, and you can just lose those without any deficit to your other cards, like all your Fathomless Descent stuff.
Yeah.
Because there is just premium removal that wants Fathomless Descent.
Yes.
All right, Vito's Inquisitor, 4 mana for a 3/3. Pay 1, sacrifice another creature or artifact, and put a +1/+1 counter on the Vito's Inquisitor. There is enough sacrifice artifacts now that I'm happy with that tricky card.
It took till the last card in black.
Yeah, I'll bump whatever I gave it. I bump it up half a point. It gains menace until end of turn. This is okay. You have to have things you want to sack. You only need to sacrifice one thing for this to be a decent rate creature. Gains menace that could kill somebody. It's also just good anti removal because you can sack at instant speed.
Yep.
So you could just sit on it and they either remove this or they remove something else, and then this gets bigger and scarier. So it's sort of a filler for your 4-drop slot if it's not too crowded. This is an okay card to run at all times. And some decks like Orzhov will actively want to sacrifice their stuff. So I think that this is probably like a 2 in some decks, and then all the way up to a 3 probably in Orzhov.
Yeah, I like that. It's also anything you're playing that you're like intending on crafting away later. It's nice because you can just sacrifice it for the benefit, and you still get to craft it away later from the graveyard.
Absolutely. All right, so that is the end of Black. For those of you guys watching on the YouTube channel, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of Black. But for now, Yanks, what did you think?
Black seemed all right. It had some decent removal, but it's Black. It always does. Didn't have a ton of card draw, which we've been seeing more of recently. I had a little bit.
I thought there was a lot stapled onto creatures, like the little snaily death touch guy. There was quite a bit of like lose a life, draw a card kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it felt like a lot of that was not the snail one, but the other ones. It felt a lot of it were on rares.
I agree.
Which is fine. I think Black's pretty good.
there was the Dark Ritual Rites. That was solid. Right rituals, whatever.
I'm looking in ours, but I don't see anything.
It's 2 mana. It's the not dark ritual, the ritual, vampiric ritual. Vampiric rites?
No, Fanatical Offering.
Yeah, but what's the words of the other one that we compared it to?
Well, Deadly Dispute?
Village Rites.
Oh, Village Rites. I was like...
I'm going to bed now. Thanks for watching, YouTube. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, like and subscribe. I love you. Goodbye forever.